Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to Communities Live here at Sheffield Live 93.2 FM. And we have singer songwriters Hi Fi Sean and David McAlmont. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chris.
Good afternoon, Chris. Thank you for calling us that.
You're welcome. And thank you for joining me today. I want to get a bit of background about you two. So, tell us a bit about yourselves.
Um, how we met or who we are?
Well, a little bit of both about how you met and how you are and who you are as well.
Oh, right. Okay. I'm David McAlmont. I was born in Croydon to a Guyanese mother and a Nigerian father. I lived in Guyana for 9 years, from 78 to 87. Fell in love with the music there. Came back. And about 2 years after I'd been here, I decided that I needed to join a band because people said I had a good voice, and that's how it all started. And then in about 2007, I was a bit lost, and somebody's told me that signing up to Facebook would be a good idea, and so I did. And then I made friends with somebody called Hi-Fi Sean, and then Hi-Fi Sean turned out to be a great musician. And I knew who Hi-Fi Sean was because when I came back from Guyana in '87, I'd seen Hi-Fi Sean on Channel 4. And then I also, before I started making music, I also witnessed the transformation of Hi-Fi Sean from Soft as Your Face Hi-Fi Sean to I'm Free. And I remember thinking, what in the hell happened to them? But then I had no idea that it was Sean who made friends with me on Facebook and until the day he asked me to join him on FT.
Right. And I've got to ask you, I mean, who are your main influences?
Oh my God, that's a hard one. Influences. I grew up, the kind of first music I really got into was electronic music at a very young age, 13, 14. Because in those days, you'll remember Top of the Pops kind of went hand in hand with a show called Tomorrow's World. So before Top of the Pops, it was Tomorrow's World. So you had a half an hour science program and a half an hour music program. But at that point, science and musical instruments clashed. And there was those amazing period where synthesizers and Fairlights and samplers were all on TV. So you're getting told all about this stuff as a 12-year-old kid. And then you were seeing people like Vince Clarke and Depeche Mode and Yazoo and the Human League. So it sounded like music from outer space. And I was hugely influenced by all that. And I pursued for about three Christmases wanting a synthesizer and bugging my mum and dad, and they eventually craved in and got me a synthesizer. And that's how I got into music. And then that was about 2 years later. I got a guitar and was more into rock and roll, and I started a band called the Soup Dragons. And me, and then 5 years after that, we had a record in the charts called "I'm Free," and a record in the charts in America called "Divine Thing," and then the band split up, and then I kind of slightly went back to my electronic days on DJing. I didn't want to be a DJ. This is the weird thing is I'm one of those DJs, and there's a few of us out there that didn't want to be a DJ. We just had a record collection. So somebody once said to me, "Do you want to play at my club?" And which was Glasgow Art School. And I'm like, sure. And he was my friend anyway. And he goes, "You got tons of records, you could play." So, I just played records, and that's why we called the party record players, because we were just record players. And then when I came to London, I had a name for myself in Glasgow as a DJ. So when I came to London, I was a DJ. And that's how I ended up being a DJ because everybody thought I was a DJ.
Mm.
So I'm still a DJ because people think I'm a DJ. I don't think I'm a DJ. I just play records. But, and it kept me involved in music while I was trying to find myself again as a gay man because I came out before I moved to London. And I luckily met this man through making an album. I hadn't made an album for 15 years, realized I had to do it or I never would make another one. What's the best way to do it? I had no confidence in myself, so I thought, why don't you find 12 other people to write songs with? And I asked ridiculously, bucket list of people, and 99% of them all said yes, apart from one. To this day, who I'll never tell. And but they're not with us anymore. So that might give a clue as well. It's quite interesting story. But yeah, and David, the day that me and David
You
recorded
haven't
this,
mentioned that.
the
You
day
haven't mentioned that.
everybody did say yes, apart from one person. But it was their manager, it wasn't them. Usually,
Right.
so and it was a quite a cheeky reply. But anyway, we went to a studio in Brixton, recorded the track. I think we came. I've been thinking about this, and recently, did we not come straight from the studio back here, or did we go somewhere else? I got a feeling we came back to this flat.
Did
Anyway,
we that day?
started hanging out together through that recording, because we both live in London, not far from each other. And we started hanging out, music, films, fun, getting to know each other. And that's kind of how this whole musical I don't see it as a collaboration. I hate that term. It sounds like it's, it's a band. Let's just say it's a two-member band. A duo. I hate that term as well. All these,
Oh, it's that term. I
something?
like
All these
duo.
terms like collab, duo,
I like duo.
you like duo,
I do, yeah.
synth duo. I always think it's a bit of a weird one because I've heard that one because I was like what Yazoo were and what all these other bands were, but you don't play synths. Do you think a synth duos they both play synths? I don't know. And
Andy Bell doesn't play a synth.
are they a synth duo? I suppose they are, aren't they? Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've got to ask you, I mean, we mentioned influencers, but if there was anybody that you could work with in the near future, who would it be and why?
David.
Philip Glass.
Wow, I met him once on a boat. I
Oh,
was in Italy and I met him once. It was our bass player, Sushil, who knew who he was. We had to get into this rowing boat. It was at a festival and there was a lake between us and the stage. So all the artists had to get a boat across this thing, this island thing. And it was literally a rowing, like a big rowing boat. And this guy gets in the boat with us. And Sushil just kind of went, huh? And I'm like, what? He goes, that's Philip Glass.
Wow.
You're all
wow.
just the four of us and Philip headed to this stage. We're like, hiya. And he's like, hey. So that's a good one. Class. Oh God, me. Oh Jesus, who would I like to work with? It's kind of sad. He passed away recently. David Lynch. I've always aspired to write music for David
David
Lynch.
Lynch.
I would. I actually think David Lynch would love this album. I
Mm.
really do. If he was still alive and somebody gave him this album, he would have got it. He would have totally got it. But yeah, who would I like to work with? Oh God. Do you know something? I really like Kevin. Yeah, Kevin from who is Tame Impala. I really like Kevin. I'd love to sit in a studio with Kevin talking stuff that nobody else would understand because it's all about production. He's a very much a producer, and the way he thinks, very like the way I think. It's sound as a sonic, having fun with sonics, and he so has fun with sonics, and he's a bit of a genius when it comes to that. So yeah, I'd like to work with either Kevin from Tame Impala or the guy that produces the Flaming Lips called Dave Fridman. I think he would be fun to work with.
And I mean, I've got to ask you, as a singer-songwriter yourselves, I mean, there's like a certain sound that people actually want to hear. I mean, how difficult is it to find that sound that you're looking for? Are you still looking, or have you found it at the moment?
I still haven't found what I'm looking for.
Mhm.
Which is a great. I always thought that was a great title. Honestly, it's such a great song title because it does sum up being a musician. Because you never will find what you're looking for, and that's why you make better and better records because you push yourself more. So um, if you
There
become,
are some there are some sounds that have come out of the UK in the last, say, 30 years, and they're a certain sort of like electronic soul hybrid that I actually aspired to work with, but never could. And I think that I have found that in Sean. And so that's why I love this collaboration so much because and that's why it's so exciting. So I love what Sean's vision of music is. You know, he likes a bit of the choral, he likes a groove, and he likes atmospheric sound. And this I won't say who they are
Mm,
because I don't want to kind of reduce my relationship with Sean, but
sure.
there are certain people that I really wanted to work with, and somehow collaborating with Sean, I found that.
Right.
No.
And I'm going to ask you as well. I mean, for anybody that wants to break into music, I mean, what advice would you give to our listeners? And also, a second part of this question is, how difficult is it to break into the music industry?
I think the first thing you need to do when you're young and want to make music is separate the two concepts of music and the music industry. Don't think of them as the one thing, because if you think of them as the one thing, you're already killing yourself.
Sure.
Think of them as two separate things. The music industry, even though it has the word music in it, has got nothing to do with music. It's an industry. It just happens to sell music, whereas music is a separate thing. So, yeah.
Right.
Always think that.
Yeah.
It's really hard because social media has brought the two things even closer together. It's kind of welded them as one. And don't be a dick on social media trying to sell your music. You don't need to be a complete, you know, idiot to try and demean your art to try and get it over to people. Always have respect for yourself. Have fun. Yeah, I posted some silly shit on social media and having fun with, but don't demean your art just to try and get to others. That's what I see a lot of today. But the music industry is the music industry, and making music is making music. So, as a young person who wants to make music, concentrate on that and then deal with the industry when it comes to that point.
Yeah, I think know what you like and be unashamed of it and demonstrate that with everything.
Yeah.
Don't if you don't like something, it's you're wasting your time pretending to or faking it. I mean, if you like what you like, you like what you like.
And don't copy, it's great having influences of other people or other people steer you in certain ways, but don't just copy stuff. There's no point copying. There's always that, if you copy something, you're just going to be, a melted down version of somebody else's vision. Have your own
Sure.
vision. Do something that I've always said this to people, like the day before you die, be proud of what you've done musically.
Yeah, the thing is, you're the processor, right? So even if you think that it's obvious to you that you're emulating your heroes, a lot of people will hear that for the first time.
Yeah.
You know, thing about these interviews is that you can actually say a lot of recognizable things.
Yeah.
Then you won't necessarily say in an interview like Sean can that you grew up in Pollock Shield surrounded by Bollywood cinema.
Mm,
That was one of the first ways that we bonded because I lived in Guyana and there was a lot of Bollywood cinema. I remember my uncles taking me to the cinema to see that. But then um, I've listened to a lot of reggae because I lived in the Caribbean country for 10 years. So I've listened to a lot of reggae and I've listened to a lot of soca and I was also a born again Christian. So I listened to a hell of a lot of
So,
of Christian music. And one of my favorite artists of all time, a guy called Andre Crouch, who very few people in the mainstream have heard of, is one of my absolute favorite artists. But all of these influences are like, coming into this one processor and coming out through the collaboration that I do with Sean. So it's not as if though liking stuff and being really overt about that means that you're not unique.
sure. I get what you mean. And thank you for sharing that with me, David. And I mean, to say, a few years ago, because everybody was struggling, we had COVID, and a lot of musicians at the time was doing like live feeds on YouTube or social media and stuff like that. I mean, was that an angle that you were interested in taking?
Well, we were bunker to bunker during COVID.
Right.
yeah, we did a lot of songwriting at that period, quite intensively at one period where it was keeping us alive, because it was like,
Like every day at one point.
it was just like every day there was sending things backwards and forwards. And You know,
And the Telegraph.
yeah, there's a lot of that music still to be heard in different factions in the future. So it's like, we don't shelf anything. We always, um, stuff sometimes doesn't feel relevant at that point, but feels more relevant later. I don't know why that happens, but it happens. But you also hear what's right with it and what's wrong with it, and it's good. It's good to not, you know, it's good to like have respect for everything that you've made to the point that sometimes you can take ideas from it.
Yeah,
Uh,
there are two songs on this album, including the title track that we've been working on since 2016.
yeah, the title track Twilight has went through so many
So
different
many.
stages.
So
Completely
many.
different song, completely different words, completely different music, and it's like it's been there and done it. And I actually, sometimes I forget how proud I am that that's actually it's made it. It's made it. It's even got the songs. It's even got a song title. It's the album title. It's like it's kind of like it went to the side and went right. I'm coming back. I'm coming back big. Yay! So yeah, Twilight was the underdog that made it good. I think that is a good way to look at it.
And I want to talk about your album. Actually, you just mentioned Twilight, so and you also got a single release from your album called "Sorry I Made You Cry." So I've got to ask you. I mean, how long did it take to make the album? Was it a long process, or did it come together quite quickly?
Well, we're talking about like Twilight that's been around for years, but the kind of stuff that was recorded, it was recorded really quick. It was like so we finished Daylight, I would say June or July last year, because it was out August, wasn't it? So yeah, so it would have been late spring we finished off Daylight and it was done, and then had a break for a while. And there was a really intensive 2 weeks. Me and David got together and wrote and recorded a lot of songs for Twilight, didn't we? It was like, was it not 6 or 8 songs we recorded in that
Yeah.
mad 2 weeks? And it felt like every day we were banging off two recordings. And I'm talking some of the vocals you hear as well. It was all just like the song was written and the vocal was recorded within the next hour. And it was so good because it was all energy, 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 and and then move on to the next one, and then move on to the next one, and then listen to it all back afterwards. And then it was really weird when we listened to it all back afterwards because I think we were both completely blown away what just happened. And that seems to be a thing that happens a lot with us, where we have to kind of take a step back and go, "Oh wow, look what we've just done," which is a really nice feeling because that's
Very
the
much
feeling.
so with this record.
Yeah, that's a feeling I got when I was 17, when I made my first record with the band. So it's like, it's that nice feeling of thinking like, oh, that way when you get, I'm sure you did that, David, the first time you get a record home and you play it about 100 times because it's on this piece of vinyl and you're like, that's my song. You play it, you play it, you play it, you play it. So
Mm.
it's like, it's that feeling, there's no way to describe it. It's contentment, it's quite fairy tale, it's quite, I know, there's just a really nice feeling that you've brought this thing into the world, and you're
You
dead
know
proud.
that that Pet Shop Boys album Introspective.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, it's. I was expecting Twilight to be that kind of thing. When Sean said it was going to be like an addendum to Daylight, I thought, oh right, we're just going to kind of like trip out and dub out a bit. I was not expecting this Twilight at all. So
Right.
when it happened, it was like bloody hell! I wasn't expecting, wasn't expecting this. We were both kind of. It's a really weird thing. I suppose the last time we had that feeling might have been when that night that we wrote Happy Ending, and we did it
yeah,
all. That it's like bloody hell. Where did that come from? And
yeah,
Twilight was like that. Even though I knew we were creating an album called Twilight, I was really expecting, dare I say, a poor cousin to Daylight. But
mm,
actually, it turned out being, a sibling.
mm.
Right.
And
Interesting.
it was really good fun as somebody that produces it, um, learning how to make it low key. Because as a producer, it's usually the opposite. You want to be bombastic and you know, all those words to make your record jump out the radio and you make people, you know, euphoric, whatever. It's the opposite. And you sometimes do the odd song like that, but to make a whole album with that energy was such, it was such an education because once you get into that mood and you start doing it, it's such a lovely place to be. It must be great. It kind of must be feel what it must feel like when somebody whose job it is to write music for movies, like soundtrack
Mm.
writers. That's what it feels like making this album was. Like we were making some kind of soundtrack to a thing, and I suppose that thing is Nighttime and Twilight. It's a very thematic album. So, and the same as Daylight, but Daylight was a kind of slightly more poppier, um, had poppier elements, but this album is very much soundtrack. It feels like there's a movie called Twilight, and we've just made the soundtrack for it.
I mean, you mentioned keep mentioning a lot of movies like that. I forgot that film director's name. So sorry. Who was one of your influences? David.
The glass.
Lynch.
Yeah, that's the one.
Oh, David Lynch, sorry.
Yeah, David Lynch, David Lynch. What's
David
Dave?
Lynch. That's the one.
Yeah, I knew him, Dave Lynch.
And I've
David.
got to ask you. I mean, you mentioned a lot of film references. So I've got to ask. I mean, what was the first film soundtrack that actually captured your imagination and thought,
Oh, that's easy,
gosh, I
easy.
really want to be a film. I want to do something with films, or I want to be a singer songwriter. What was that film or song, should I say?
It was Jaws.
Jaws. Wow.
Yeah. Jaws, I was taken to scene by my mother, who was a bit mad at the local cinema because where I lived in Bellshill had a cinema and Jaws was on. And I saw that when I was way too young to see it because it was quite horrific. And it's the only movie I remember to this day, people standing up in the cinema screaming at the top of their voices. But the thing that fascinated me was the tension and the music. Dun, 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 the simplicity of it. And
Yeah.
I remember a young man always thinking, that's so simple but so powerful. How amazing must it be to do things like that, to write simple, you know. And I suppose when you start thinking back, there's a lot of Hitchcock stuff, all that kind of stuff, all
Yeah.
that, things that you think of that create an illusion of fear or happiness or whatever. And yeah, I would love us to write a soundtrack to a movie.
There's
So
when Gladys Knight put out in the 70s Midnight Train to Georgia, the B side was a song called To Be Invisible, and it was written by Curtis Mayfield, and it was taken from a film called Claudine about a mother on welfare with like loads of kids who falls in love with the garbage man and all the complications of being a African American couple with those circumstances. And I remember that kind of shaped the way that I write. I think in that I've always been the guy, and this was one of the things that came out when we did that thing with Craig recently. Sean is very much an A side man, and I'm very much a B side person. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's the A side. The A side is great, but have you heard the B side? And so I think the first time that I responded to that, and it wasn't until I listened to Curtis Mayfield quite a bit later that I realized how Curtis Mayfield, the melody that Gladys Knight was singing was. But, Midnight Train to Georgia is like a fun tune, and you can kind of like, half listen to it and what whilst you're doing other stuff. That's got that immediacy. But this way that To Be Invisible took you to another world, that's always been the appeal for me. That's always been the appeal of music for me.
And I mean, we're going to go back to your album that you just recently released. It's called Twilight. So, I mean, how can people get a copy of your album? Is it digital? I mean, will there be physical copies that people can
yeah,
get as well?
It's
it's
just
it's
on cassette.
it's on everything. It's on digital, CD, vinyl,
Not
flexi
cassette.
flexi disc.
And I mean, is there going to be a possible tour possibly in the future?
Yeah, we're touring in May. We're going out on tour supporting who we can't announce because they haven't announced it. But look out for the dates on all our social media where we'll be traveling through Scotland, England, and a little bit of Wales in May, the second week of May onwards.
And will you be coming to Sheffield at any time?
Um, is Sheffield on that list?
I
Hold on,
thought,
hold on. Hold on, I'll have a look. I think it is. No. Sorry. Where's next to Sheffield? Is Cambridge next to Sheffield?
Cambridge.
Oh, that's a long, long way from Sheffield, mate.
Are
No. Bath. Is Bath not next to Sheffield near Sheffield?
you for real, dude?
No, I don't know. I don't know Basically, it's Glasgow, Aberdeen, Gateshead, Bournemouth, Guildford, Bath, London, Landrydod, Liverpool, and Cambridge.
So,
Liverpool's probably the closest on that list.
Liverpool.
so Liverpool, and I mean, when are you?
Liverpool is closest, yeah, yeah.
And I'm going to say, when are you going to be touring in Liverpool? Just for our listeners at home.
So Liverpool is the 18th of May at the Liverpool Philharmonic.
And I mean, I want to talk after your new album, and congratulations on the new album, by the way. I want to talk about, is there any future projects that you two are currently working on at the moment, or is it all secretive at the moment?
Well, we've just released two albums in 6 months, so we're having a bit of a break. But we both do different things. I DJ, I make I remix dance music, I make dance music as well, and David does. You do with the songbook stuff, and we're both, and you're an art historian. But yeah, we're both, you know, it's good to have other things and then have this as well.
Well, Sean has said that he's going to do a song a month. It's
I know,
February.
I know, and it's February, and I've not, I know,
So yeah,
I'm
I think the idea is that we write throughout the year and then do something. But I've got
yeah,
quite a
definitely. I'm going to do a song a month. You're going to be hit with two or three at the one to make up for it. So they're in my head. I've just got to do because I run the record label as well. So it's a lot of work before the album
Yeah,
comes out. So, the last 2 months I've been concentrating on that, but it's out now. So, all that comes off your shoulders. So,
yeah.
I can start making music again and not how to sell music.
I get what you mean.
It's like my life since Daylight came out has just been a record label, and it's such hard work. People ask things of you every minute of the day, and you're like, leave me alone. So yeah.
Well, I think you deserve a break as well, especially with album. And I'm going to say congratulations on the album. And I mean, to our listeners at home who want to follow you on social media, do you have like Instagram, Facebook?
Yeah, we're all in all that stuff. You'll just troll us on Google and you'll find us.
And my final question for you, because we're quickly running out of time, and it's been a great interview. Thank you very much for joining me, you two. And I'd like to give the final word to you two. So, I mean, what would you like to say to our listeners who is currently listening right now?
We would like to say to you, if you enjoy what you hear, have a listen back to what we've done over the last three albums, because you might hear things that you enjoy and discover. It's always nice when you like something to go backwards and discover the artist's other work. So yeah, check out our discography.
Yeah, if the first thing you hear from this out from this pair is Twilight, don't worry, don't panic, because my preference is to listen to Twilight first, like go through the night, and then you have the mantra that begins and ends both albums, which is Daylight becomes Twilight, Twilight becomes Daylight, and then that takes you into Daylight, and that's my preferred way of doing it, because then the sun comes up after a long night.
Hi, fi Sean, David McAlmont. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
We need to shoot because we've actually got another interview at 12:30. So
Have we?